I'm Allie with PotomacBeads. Join me in learning Freeform raw stitch. So you may be familiar with the right angle weave stitch, but you may not be familiar with the fact that you can do it with any size beads in any combination to get a fun patchwork design. If you need any materials, you can check the links below me, but go through your stash. This is a great way to get rid of and kind of have a random looking bracelet ideas, whether or not you're using Toho or Miyuki in the design, adding in a couple crystals or even maybe some 2-hole beads as well. So when doing right angle weave, I just wanted to show what the bracelet is starting to look like as you get a couple inches in. I'm going to go over with you how to start with the regular right angle weave and then how we get this nice patchwork kind of quilted design that has that nice lacy texture to it. You can use, like I said, any beads to do this. I have some 3mm Potomac Crystal bicones, Toho 11, Toho 8, Miyuki 11, Miyuki 11, Miyuki 8, and a Miyuki 8 as well. Again, a different variety of textures in metallics and in mattes, as well as the crystals to get started. You can do this with any size needle. If you are working with 15 OC beads, you may want a size 12 needle. I have a size 10 that I'll be working with and some gray wildfire beading thread. Make sure to have a clasp handy. I'm going to be using a ClaspGarten push clasp, and this is just in the round swirl 7mm as we go in and kind of finish out the design. So to get started, I have 0.006 wildfire beading thread, and I have a size 8 bead on here. That's not one of the ones used in my project. I'm using a size 12 needle because that's what was on my thread, but you don't need to use that particular thing. I'm going to show how to start out this right angle weave by using 8 OC beads, and then we're going to progress from there. Right angle weave is based on a group of 4 beads at one time. I'm going to let those 4 beads drop down to that stop bead, and then sew back through, starting from the stop bead and going towards the end of the thread, the first 3 beads. If you're not familiar with raw stitch or right angle weave stitch, you may want to watch one of my other videos first before going in and doing the freeform raw. From here, we're going to add another grouping of 3 beads. For our next unit, we'll pick up the Miyuki 15 O's in a different color so you can see the 3rd unit starting. I already have 1 bead on there, which my thread is coming out of, which is going to be the left side now of my new right angle weave little box. I have 3 more beads on. The first one's going to be the floor, second one's going to be the right side, and the 3rd one is going to be the ceiling. Going back down through the left wall, I'm coming in from the top, creating a circle for my next right angle weave or raw unit. From here, I'm going to sew back through the floor, and back through what is the right wall of that 2nd unit, which will now become the left wall of the next unit. So I'll pick up another color here. I have the silver lab full. 3 beads go on because I need now my ceiling, my right wall, and my floor. So back through the bead you're coming out of, which is going to be the left side wall, and then to progress to the next row, I'm going to sew just through the ceiling bead. That's going to be the start of your stitch here for the freeform raw. You can do this as long as you want. However many rows you do is going to dictate approximately the width of the bracelet that you're going to have on your wrist. So from here, I'm going to have fun in this raw stitch. To have fun and to kind of make it a more kind of lacy collection, you want to make sure that you always know and establish where your next set of floor beads are as you build onto kind of your high-rise building. From here on the silver, I have 1 silver on. That's going to be my floor bead of my first right angle weave unit on the right-hand side of the 2nd story. I'm going to continue 1 more just to kind of go with it to establish. And I'm going to this time, actually I'll switch up to 11 OC beads. Rather than 1 11 OC bead for my right wall, I'm going to use 2. 2 11 OC beads for my ceiling, and 2 11s for my left wall. So back through that floor bead, back through the 2 C beads, which are going to be the right wall, the 2 C beads, which are going to be the left wall, and now to get to the next unit, back down the 2 beads that were going to be the left wall. From here, those 2 left wall beads are going to become part of my next unit and be right walls. I'm going to go through the next floor bead. This time I'll grab some blue beads. I'm going to do 2 of my blue 11-O's metallic cosmos in for the right wall, or left wall rather, and 2 for the ceiling. Come back down through what was the left wall of the previous unit and is now going to be the right wall of the next unit. Going through then my floor and exiting through my 2 11-O's that are currently the left-hand wall. There's 1, there's 2. Now the reason I'm calling this freeform is because you're switching the length or the size of the right angle unit. I'm going to do it one more time here, adding just in 1 11-O for the ceiling and 2 11-O's in this dark topaz rainbow luster for the wall. Go back through your next floor bead, up through your 2 right wall beads, which were from the previous unit, and through my 1 ceiling bead. Now when I look at my right angle units, I can determine what's going to be the floor for the next row. I have 1 of my 11-O's in that topaz color, 2 of my metallic cosmos, and then 2 of my green iris. Coming out the next row, I'm going to flip it in my hand so that way I'm sewing again towards the left-hand side. Coming out that top ceiling bead, I'll go back and I'll add in 2 green beads for my right wall, 1 8-O for my ceiling, and 1 8-O for my left wall. So back through that floor bead, which was just 1, back up through my right wall, which was 2 beads, back through my ceiling, 1 8, and then on to the next right angle unit, going through the left wall, which is now going to become the right wall of the next unit. Looking in a circle, I'm going to go through my 2 cosmos beads, because those are the floor. I'll add in 2 more of my metallic Polaris, I think this is, or sorry, Permafinish purple, and that's the Toho brand. And that's going to be my left wall and my ceiling. Go back through what's now the right wall bead, back through my 2 beads, which are my floor, and out through the 1 purple right. Changing it up again, I'll go back to my 11-O's, and I'll use 2 11s for the ceiling, and I'll do 2 11s for the right-hand wall, or left-hand wall rather, sorry. Go back through those 2 floor beads, because right angle weave always happens in a circle, up through the right wall, and out through my 2 ceiling beads. Those 2 ceiling beads are now going to become the floor for my next rows of right angle weave, and I know I have my 2 of my dark topaz, my 1 of my crystal Labrador, and in the middle my 1 of my Permafinish purple. At any time, if you want to also, you can add in a crystal instead of seed beads. So you can do this with any beads. You can do it with 6-O's. If you use a lot of small beads at once, it'll pull it tighter together. Bigger beads, more thread will show and it'll pull it further apart. On the side here, I'll go in and I'll use some of my matte beads. So I'll use 2 matte beads and 2 green beads. 1 for the right side, 1 for the ceiling, 2 green beads for the left wall. Go in here, back through those 2 beads, up through my right wall, through my ceiling, down through my left wall, which again will become the right wall of the next unit. To close that up, I'll go through the floor bead, which is my purple bead, add in 1 of my crystals for a little deco sparkle and shine, add in 2 more green beads for my ceiling, and back down the 2 green beads that are on the right hand wall now. Back through the floor bead, back through the side bead, which is going to be my crystal. So you can see it really has no rhyme or reason to what I'm picking up. I'm not overthinking it. I'm going to do 2 greens, 2 of my topaz, back through my floor bead, back through my right wall, which is my crystal, and out through my 2 ceiling beads, which will now become my floor beads of my next row. So my next row to establish, I have my 1 matte 8-0, I have my 2 green and 2 green there. You can see that the patchwork really starts to take place, and the further you go, the more fun it becomes as you go in and kind of create that nice netting look and that netting design. Again, you can add in any beads. If you wanted to do 6 rows, you could do that as well. You can do more rows, less rows, and just do it one single and have fun and make it a wrap bracelet. But it's a great way to kind of use bead soup and to use up a lot of the different beads that you may have sitting in your collection. Or the real reason I did this originally was because I had a huge spill with all of these colors mixed together, and I thought, let's do some freeform raw and make it a fun design. Once you progress in the design and finish up the length that you need to, what you need to do is get your clasp ready and bring your threaded needle back to the middle of the design. So I'm here on the edge as if I was getting ready to add in my next group of beads, and I'm going to sew back through that right angle weave, kind of reinforcing that section as well, up through into the next section. And the next section I happen to have 2 of my blue beads. I'm going to come out between those 2 blue beads. Grab on to 1 loop of my clasp and go down into the second blue bead, which is my middle bead or my roof bead right there in that center row of right angle weave. Going back through the rest there of that right angle weave, down through the left wall, that purple bead, through the silver, back up through the right wall, through the ceiling, back through the loop, and down through again. That reinforces that loop. You can do it one more time if you want also. I'm going to be satisfied with 2, and then just sew back down into the right angle weave design a little bit. Going back through here. And as you sew back through, you're basically tightening it up also. You're just going to sew back. I usually sew back in my right angle weave about 1 inch, and then I feel good that I can knot off the thread, but I can also just tie it off and be happy and go with it and trust that nothing bad is going to happen to that knot. Going back through to tie it then, what I'm going to do is go in underneath that loop, go back through the loop that I just made, through the loop that I just made a second time, and that's going to give me a nice sewer's knot that's going to sit right in between the right angle weave, and you won't see it at all. What I am going to do then is just sew down a little bit further in the design, pulling that knot preferably into one of the 8-0 seed beads, back into the design, and then after one of the 8-0s that have a decent size hole, so that way I won't see the thread burn, I'll take the thread out, grab my thread burner, heat it up by pressing on the button, go in, burn down the thread edge, turn the design, and burn that thread edge nice and flush next to the project, making sure not to burn any of the other thread. I'm going to go back and do the same thing on the other side, going in, adding a needle to my starter thread, which I had about 4 or 5 inches on, and add my clasp into the center of my design over here. Once you get the clasp on in the middle of the design, you can see how cool it looks just in that patchwork form. Remember, when you're doing the freeform raw, if you do need any materials, you can check out the links below. Also, it would be great for you to comment as well as post in our beading group on Facebook for beading and jewelry making. Show us what your freeform raw stitch looks like. It's a great variety. I'd love to see it in some Picassos as well as some of those crystals added in bigger sizes and smaller sizes as well. So make sure to post pictures so that way everybody can see and get ideas and gather and grow this community. As with all of the videos, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to stay connected and get the videos regularly notified to you, press that little subscribe button at the bottom. Again, material links are below me, as well as links to PotomacBeads.com, as well as PotomacBeads.eu. Thanks so much for watching, and enjoy that freeform raw stitch. Just that reminder, if you do not know raw stitch to start with, check that video out first prior to trying out the raw stitch and getting confused.